tonight will be presented Finland-based artist Antye Greie-Ripatti, or AGF, or poem producer. AGF is a sound artist, facilitator, and feminist activist. She had published more than 30 records, facilitated countless projects, and organized also countless sound interventions with collaborators from around the globe. Her work deals with the possible futures within and outside the framework of something that's possible to describe as like artistic practice. AGF waves, deconstructed language, field recordings, low frequencies, disembodied voices, post-club aesthetic, and arithmetical patterns, and all of this is mixing into dense sonic feminist technologies. Now I will like to welcome you, AGF. I will kindly ask participants to have the microphones muted so we don't have any feedback, and please, if it's possible for you, have the cameras on so we don't need to face blank screens. Thank you for being here. AG, welcome.
Hi, everyone. So, Jan, thank you for inviting me. And thank you for your interest in my work, and everyone here. Thank you for coming and spending your time on listening to this practice of sonic wilderness. I'm currently teaching sonic wilderness to a class as a visiting artist, a class also in Brno, and obviously remotely. And so I'm very much connected right now to the topic. As you heard, I'm doing many things. I'm making music, and I have done a lot of performances, records, and so on. But in the last 10 plus years, I've been looking into other ways to work with sound and audio and use my skills a little bit differently, and also especially think about different kind of spaces to be in than the traditional music performance spaces or music listening spaces. So I want to talk about sonic wilderness, political sound, collective instrumentality, and critical listening today. So to speak, think about the sonic perspective on things, life. And sonic wilderness is something we started maybe 10, 11 years ago with a bunch of people doing similar things, and mostly around bioart society in Finland. And this word kind of came out of a camp I was doing there in Kilpisjärvi in Finland. That was 2011. And that's on this big mountain there called Sana. But it was kind of the first time I dragged my gear outside and was thinking about different kind of spaces to make music in and maybe perform or stuff like that. And also, after the initial experimentations, kind of going outside with my computers and finding ways to be without power and without audiences and stuff, I realized that this whole practice most likely probably makes more sense to do together, with other people, instead of being alone and having an audience performance kind of relation, but rather have a relation as a group and do things together. So sonic wilderness is a practice that takes musicians, artists, thinkers, or anybody interested really, children, outside to engage sonically with the environment, public space and social space. Through listening, interacting with sound, or sounding, collaborating and playing together with any sound that can be found, by exploring these spaces and develop methodologies and technologies on these sites to collaborate and maybe find new techniques to make sound together, or compose together or improvise together, build instruments for these spaces and so on. And I want to show you today like several kind of aspects to this and also how it became this. So as I said, I started like this, and this was one of the first camps I did with people, also in Kilpisjärvi, northern Finland, with Bioart Society. And that camp was called Sonic Wild Code. And we were going out there, 6 or 8 practitioners, sound people, and exploring this very minimal landscape. And actually, I wanted to play you the video here of this piece, but the sound and video is not working. That's why you would need to go to a website. Do you think you can do this? Maybe we listen to this intervention. The link is in the chat. It's a Vimeo site, and when you come to the Vimeo site, you see a bunch of videos. And I think maybe the 6th or 7th from top is called Sonic Wild Code, Reindeer Fans. And it's 3 minutes long. So if you could watch it, and then I carry on. Yeah? So this is an example of sonic wilderness intervention, but these interventions can look very different in many different cases. That is just one where we in one morning decided to go into the field, and we walked 2 hours. We took all our portable instruments and our portable speakers, and Anya, later I will show a few people who participated more in this practice. Anya brings her little synthesizer she built herself. Till was... Oh, there's sound intervention right now. Till was live coding, and the helicopter was a total surprise. There was Chinese tourists flying to see the Northern Lights. And so we had also field recordists with us and people with cameras, and we were filming and just playing for an hour or two and recorded some materials which we later used for composition and so on. And that's basically a documentation video. It's not really a piece, but it shows how we did these things. And it was really intuitive and fun and so nice to do it. Like, maybe the nicest thing I've done, like in terms of music, you know, these kind of like being really in the moment and not conforming to anything that's expected, for example. So yeah, that's the example. And now maybe I carry you through a little bit how this came together. So in 2008, I moved from Berlin after some bunch of years, you know, in the techno city and making a lot of records and traveling. I moved to an island in the north, in Hailuto, where I'm now also. And I started after a while, after we've settled, I built this arts organization called High Art. And I was thinking I could, you know, contribute to the island as an artist in this way, thinking about sound and listening, and I started working with kids, and we had a community choir, and we had a little lab, like a media lab, and we built different kind of we had different kind of artists in residencies, altogether 10 different ones, where artists would come here for 2-3 weeks and work. And after a while, I got really tired of this very intense artists in residencies, and I was thinking I should rather have groups, so many people come over, and this is how the camps also started. So we were building basically this, we were thinking about culture of listening, cultivating the kind of practice or this kind of way of life. So we were meeting and trying different things in space, in public space. Then, for example, we had also built this sculpture for the artist Lukas Kühne with this arts organization, which is also a site we can use. Here you cannot hear now, but you can see a little bit where we went into this space with lots of instruments and little experimentations, listening devices, synthesizers, feedback systems, and everybody brought their little things, microphones, lots of microphones, and we were playing in this space for many hours and building basically an installation in there for us to play. And it's a resonating sound space, so everything is extremely amplified and very beautiful to work there outside. Yeah. So over time, doing these camps and experimenting with sound outside. For example, here, this is Ryoko Akama. She was also here on the island, and we made a sonic boat journey where we took a local fisherman took us out on the sea, and we were playing to a site where they are constructing a nuclear power plant, or they wanted to construct one, and we were basically playing with a Geiger counter and a score Ryoko had made. to the side and were filming and recording it. And Ryoko is a victim of Fukushima, like for real. She was there, and that's why she's in Europe now. And so I took her to the side, and we were basically making the score to prevent the nuclear power plant. And so far it's not built, but stuff like this takes time. There's still lots of resistance, but it's a good case Pyoyoki if you're interested. So interventions like this, I've also worked with kids on the island. As I said, we had this little media lab. We made a sound app with the children, a field recording app. So we recorded lots of different sounds on the island and put it on a map. You can play with your finger. This is also the same situation when we were in Lapland playing with the Sonic Wildcode in 2015. Then I started carrying the practice also away from Finland. Like I was invited, for example, here in 2018 to go to Indonesia, Yogyakarta, by CTM and Nusa Sonic. These are collaborative festivals, CTM Berlin-based, Nusa Sonic in Southeast Asia-based. And they invited me to make a camp there. And it was a sort of feminist sound camp with very diverse women from the area, like from Philippines, from Indonesia, from Vietnam. And we were also doing similar things, going out, finding places to play, finding places to be and make an intervention. And I want to ask you to go again to the same website and listen to this video. It's the second sound line in the rice field. It's only 1 minute long. Yeah, it breaks down the sound because this was the first recording of this piece we made. When we first time just did that, it was just recorded on a phone. We went later, a few days later, we went back and recorded it properly. But for some reason, I don't have this video here. Weird. Anyway, it became this improvisation on the rice field. It became even a piece we later performed pretty similarly on stage when we were performing on the final days of this festival or this intervention time. And we played that piece then on stage. It became basically, out of this improvisation, it became a piece. I really love it. And it really every time moves me. We went there and it's like super much heat, 40 degrees. There were people working in the field and, you know, birds and kids. And yeah, it's a very beloved piece that came out of this. And over time, I was thinking, you know, first I was like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about everything so deeply as I'm explaining it to you now. It was just more just doing it, you know. I wasn't like making a big head. Afterwards, I started writing and started thinking what actually had happened. But most of the things just happened, or we just made them happen. We just grabbed stuff and we did, and we go and we look for a site we find interesting, or we plan to go aside, or we were site scouting and then go there with the group. And afterwards I was thinking about that things that happen and what does it mean, you know, it wasn't planned or something like this. So over time I started to think this as a composition method, which I didn't think in the beginning it was. I thought it was just, you know, research or just nice to be outside and do music there and not be in a concert hall or in a club or, you know, at night, necessarily deal with listening in spaces which are actually not made for listening. That was one of the biggest frustrations I had over time as a musician, that you would play in spaces where people actually came to date and to drink and to have fun, which is really fair enough. But if you come there with something you have really worked on to mean something, and it's quite often not met, you know, with the same attention. So I was really literally looking for spaces to do kind of sound work that would be, on one hand, refreshing, unexpected, unpredictable, and also, yeah, I don't know, it just happened. And then over time I was thinking, oh, actually, the setup is almost like an event score. It's like something that starts to happen and that you can plan, and then it is almost like a score. It's like a composition, how you would set up either a graphic score or an event score, or, you know, write actually notation on a piece of paper for people to play it. And so the interventions which were successful, there were obviously also many which weren't successful or weren't really something to show. But the ones which kept and stayed over time and became videos, documentations, or even exhibition space pieces or compositions, they became these kind of like pieces, you know. So I come back to this later. Here's another piece we did. Actually, I want you to listen to it. It's an evening piece. So if you go back to the website, it's the fourth piece called Sonic Treeing. And maybe I can talk on top of it a little bit, although it's very beautiful. In the beginning, you hear the actual field recording of these incredible trees. It's also in Indonesia. Huge trees and pine-like trees. And it was a stormy day and they were banging towards each other, and they made this, like, I've never heard this sound before. They made this incredible sound. And before we went there, we were at the lighthouse. Actually, the first picture you saw in the presentation. And we recorded this sound piece together, where we just been singing together in this kind of holly lighthouse. And so I mixed these two recordings from us treeing, like literally leaning into a tree and just be there. And I was basically prescribing certain exercises to do with these trees. So we were thinking about the roots and the stem and the crown of the tree, and how the tree is connected to the sun and to the oxygen and to the space and the atmosphere. And we were thinking about frequency in this context. So thinking about, you know, what frequency correlates to what space, and so it was a kind of a meditation to frequency and tree. And later in the video, I added this voice piece we recorded in the lighthouse. And treeing is actually inspired by a fictional character out of a sci-fi book called Binti by Nedi. It says also in a transcription. There is this alien woman who has this incredible mathematical skills. She can meditate on equations and complicated math, and that's her way to harmonize and to bring harmony to, also in that book, you know, civilizations or situations and so on and so on. And she's this like magic harmonizer, which can, through math and numbers, can heal. So that's kind of the story there. It's a little bit esoteric, but actually not. It's kind of sci-fi. So we were rebuilding this idea of this treeing with frequency with these trees. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. We were just there for 20 minutes and these trees sounded so incredible. Yeah, it was 2018 in near Yogyakarta in Indonesia, mainland Java. So I carry on. Here, for example, I show more examples of this practice. And oh, I forgot to say in the beginning that I want you to think about questions, right? So if you have any question, anything that you want to know, please write it down, because we're gonna make a Q&A, and I want you to have answers, yeah? So please make some notes if you have questions. I'm really happy to answer anything. So here's another situation where we went with this group 2016. It was mostly, I had invited instrument builders, so people who build their own things. Actually, there's a book we also published around the time called Musical Instruments in the 21st Century. So kind of assuming that we are somewhere at the potential end of musical innovation through, you know, technology advancement, of course not, but quite. At least, nevertheless, I don't know how many musicians are listening. This is my feeling, my personal feeling, that maybe there is not so much anymore we can do with instruments, at least for now, it seems like. I don't hear a lot of technical surprises anymore. So I was always thinking, you know, the innovation would lay in building new instruments or combining new instruments or making like combining different kind of technologies into new ways of playing or something. So this is what we're doing there. So we went into forest. It's the blueberry forest. We were surrounded by blueberries, and we just played some sort of kind of loopy stuff. And somebody was walking around with a field recorder and recording performative what we were playing, and it was great fun, a great day. We walked very long to this little lighthouse on the North Shore, which we also played. There's a beautiful piece Annie Go recorded. She's a sound artist. She made some sort of feedback piece with this tower, because it had this, it's a metallic tower, and made this beautiful feedback sound. It's marvelous. I don't have it here now, but Annie has it. Here we tried mushroom techno. We were like just playing and having fun, actually dancing moss. That day we were a little bit going crazy. There's also video online somewhere, but maybe we don't need to listen to this now. And this was the first time we literally created an event score for like 9 people. Go to the forest, sit down, pack out, like, you know, like that kind of really instruction-ish. So yeah, I was also all the time experimenting with language alongside these things. So thinking about new words, new meanings, putting what we're doing into meaning, like thinking about how our bodies are there and how we, although using often technology or, you know, speakers or amplification or sonification and things like that, we would still also participate in very much with our bodies, because we are in the space, you know, and everywhere where you put your body, there's sound, your clothes, your foot, your feet steps, your breathing, everything matters. So this started to play a really big role as well. For example, one artist, a really well-known sound artist, Lee Patterson, he made a forest piece with us at night. We went out in the night, just one light, and we played the forest. And it was so beautiful. And our bodies were so loud in this quiet forest. It was amazing. It was also a great piece. We experimented with sonification of mushrooms and also other matter, and we built several synthesizers here. This is an experimentation with the Interspecifics Collective, a Mexican collective, and Antye Erdmann is there. She builds her own little synthesizers and sound installations and lots of mechanical installations. So she helped me here to sonify mushrooms for a piece I was making. This was really making fun sound. I think it's here also. Maybe we could listen to it. It's right there. So go back to the website, Sonic Wilderness on Vimeo. The third video, mycelium sonification, it's only 17 seconds. And what's happening there is basically we put up an Arduino interface. I also have it here. And the software connected the PD patch samples the environment, and the information from the mushroom modulates that field recording or that real-time field feed. And for example, I was also later singing and speaking and talking to the mushroom or talking to the space, and it was modulating it really nice. The recordings also made it in one of my records called Solidicity, and it was a great source of sample material, actually, what we've gathered there that day. Yeah, I kept experimenting with different mushrooms in different situations. And this one, for example, was a very good sounding mushroom, also very poisonous. I got really dead hands after working with this. It's one of the most poisonous mushrooms I picked up. This is a synthesizer, like a step, kind of like a step sequencing synthesizer we built that week. Jakob Rein built that. It was great fun, and they used all these, like, that was the week where so many Amarita mushrooms were growing. It was fun. Yeah, and at the time I'm constantly studying radical mycology, or general studying, matter and life and earth. And mycology really caught my interest maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, always been a huge fan of mushrooms, and suddenly got the confidence to stand with it and live with it, and like go a little bit deeper through this organization called radicalmycology.com. It's a grassroots organization worldwide, which is so cool. They really investigate into the matter and the science of fungi, mycelium, mushrooms, either in all ways you can imagine or you cannot even imagine. So I was studying that, and alongside applying this, also trying to apply it to music. And that is also why some of the pieces are, or like some of the practice are called Sound is Growing, because I started to think about sound and composition and also art practice more in a way about something that also grows, like, like a mycelium network or even a spider network, how it's building, and you work and you're building it. Not as much as, for example, in classical music you would compose, based on notation and imagination, based on musical rules, or for example, if you use Ableton or any sort of other kind of technology that has rules, like even an MPC or sample-based or whatever, synthesizers, you're working with predetermined, factors. So I was thinking about more and more a sonic wilderness also like almost not like a machine, but like something but it's constantly growing. It's not set up. It's just something we play as we go, and we grow alongside that capability of playing the space or a social situation or the ground or air or, you know, anything. And there's things that happen, birds fly by, or if you're more in an urban space, cars come by or whatever, you know. So yeah, here's, for example, Aniko doing feedback work on a boat. That was a camp I did in Lithuania at the shore at some old Russian military base, abandoned, and we played at this with the waves in the ocean, and it was beautiful piece we also made there. I later made a mixtape out of some of these recordings, combining with other recordings. Actually, nice mixtape. It's on my Mixcloud. It's called Biosemiotics, and also goes into this idea of perception, and that, you know, thinking about a different position, as which is not the human position, but thinking or considering the life of the wave or the mushroom or the stone, the geology, the planet, you know, all these things as they are from their point of position and not from the human position, which is, of course, as a human, absolutely impossible, but still interesting to think about. So yeah, this is there was an interesting work. Here's something more urban, sonic wilderness intervention in Berlin at the Reichstag, so the government building, and in the background you see Kanzleramt, where Angela Merkel is governing. So we made this intervention there. One day it was part of CTM also. There was a very fun, playful, kind of techno-ish, obviously, day play. What's that? Ah, that's a Berghain recording. Maybe we cannot listen to this now. Yeah, so sound is growing. So more and more I was thinking in terms of composition, also something I let happen, and I let it grow. I give it water, you know, almost like a plant. Like, it's not something that I determine, oh, I want to hit that note, or I want to play that tone, or I'm going to play, you know, E minor, and I'm going to have this mood. But no, you just let it happen, and with others together and the environment and so on. And if you kind of don't think so much about it while you're doing it, it is a great fun, and often leads to really very interesting sonic results, which you could have not made up, you know. Like, this is the situation we were in. This is a crazy picture, but we are here in this lighthouse where we recorded this singing. I hope you're still there. Can somebody make one sound? I feel like I'm alone. I'm talking to myself.
I'm making sounds, and
Yay!
it looks like we are all here.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So, yeah. Meanwhile, after doing a bunch of all these interventions, I also started, as I said, writing about it, and got some invitations to write about it. I'm writing right now a book chapter for a feminist sound book about the body in sonic wilderness. I mentioned this earlier a little bit, and this is something I hadn't thought about so far, but now thinking about it, it became really powerful point of view to think about our bodies, you know, in this kind of space. And yeah, this is what I'm doing now. And I also wrote this book, which you can see there, and I also have it here right now, where I wrote a chapter mostly about the work on the island where I live. And it's also called Sonic Wilderness, and thoughts around decentralization of art and culture, vision for rural art practices, because I'm in a very rural situation, remote influence in broader network constellations, and art and friendship. So what also happened with these sonic interventions, and which I wasn't planning, but it happened, and I think it's maybe one of the strongest arguments to do this practice, is that every of these interventions were really intensive and beautiful and made us into friends. So whenever we would spend a week, doing all these crazy things, and they were sometimes really silly, we would come out as friends. And the design of the group, basically, or the invitations, or the way how we met and who met, we built quite, not with everyone, but really lasting connections. And all of these people I've been in these camps with, we're still friends, and they are all over the world, and we know each other. And it's our time now. I mean, within the pandemic, it becomes even more normal that we are friends being far distant and so on. But to me, that became actually almost one of the most strongest arguments for this things, because every person, contributes to life you meet ever. So it's also a really nice way to be with humans, basically. To me, it's a very rewarding way to be with humans, for example, compared to going to a pub, which I don't like, or be in a shopping mall I can't stand, or be in a train, not nice, or be in an airplane, or be in a cafe, I don't like either, be in a shop, I don't like. Where do I like to be with humans? So doing this with humans is really beautiful. It's a weird thing to say, but it's really true. So yeah, this had been fun, and I wanted to show you BioArt Society. This is the organization based in Finland, but you can also become a member if you're working with bioart or like related to bioart. There has been now also more sound at this in this society, and they do a lot of really interesting projects, also mostly exhibitions and conferences and things. So I recommend you to have a look at them. They have a really good online presence. I'm currently making a podcast for them about ticks. Ticks, these little parasites who get stuck on you and also can transfer sicknesses and things. And that's very interesting. So we are in the 5th edition of TikToks. It's really fun. And I've learned so much, and it's really stunning material. You can have a look at the website and find it. Yeah, so the instrumentality, I wanted to show you a few more of the instruments we built. For example, here, these are artists. For example, Till was one of the first people, and he also we coined together Sonic Wilderness somehow, or I don't know, it came out of Sonic Wild Code, and he has been doing this also forever. And we met through the BioArt Society and started to, think about the topic a little bit more. And in the beginning, it was very much a romantic idea of being in nature and doing sound, but it became more and more serious. So here he built this kind of very funny moss picking wind device. He also has it on his website. You can find out more about his instrument building. He's a serious instrument builder and coder. This is the little synthesizer of Antye I told you about already. It was very useful to have this outside. This is the mushroom. It's basically the this of Jacob's mushrooms synthesizer. And this is Lee Patterson, who also had his self-built instruments with him. We're here at the beach. That was in a lab figuring out if those mushrooms make different sounds. They didn't. Here's also nearby where we have done on the island work. We were just talking and discussing our practices and explaining each other how we work and live and do music and sound. Yeah, so these are largely most of the things I can tell. And exactly, and now maybe I want to show you one more video. And it's called Monster Cavern. It's approximately the 7th or 8th one. Sonic Wild Code Monster Cavern. It's also 3 minutes long. So if you could listen to that, that would be great. And it's the same group in Finland, in North Finland. Yeah, so you can see we kind of lost it there in between and got really crazy. It was also the end of the day and we were starting to get hungry. And I also regret that it was recorded from the position of the camera. There is another recording because Dina was walking around the cave and was recording from above. And she has a really good recording of this, but this video is just a video microphone. And so you hear Anya, who's sitting in the front, and her synthesizer very loudly, sadly, because in the middle was the best sound because we were all doing these different weird things. And what I like about this video is actually, or this intervention, was how we kind of lost it, you know, like adult people, and how we were really giving ourselves permission to be completely silly on a light of the day, you know, like, and feel this together, rage or anger or things like that. So it was really cool to do this intervention. And it's always good to have a really good, it's something we also wrote in the book about instrumentality of sonic wilderness, that it's always good to think of it also from the documentation perspective, because if in such a moment, if you don't record and if you don't have really nice documentation, you really, because stuff like this happens not very often. And I appreciate that moment more than a song, you know, that has been like, sometimes it can be, you know, I can appreciate that kind of sound moment so much because it's such a rare combination of that people and their instruments and their willingness to be expressive and so on and so on. So it's a very interesting space to be with people and, you know, let go and trust and be something we don't allow us often to be, you know, this like maybe a little bit more complex being, which has been taken away from us through growing up or something. I don't know if you would all agree on this. You can debate me later. I want to one more thing go into. So back to the presentation. Since Sonic Wilderness, as I said, I'm doing this for many years, so I've become more and more interested also in building spaces and networks which act politically. And I was experimenting with political music, first trying to do feminist projects, but also pushing more and more, well, largely think about freedom or fighting for better things, for better spaces, better life, more justice and things like that. And I was thinking how I could contribute to this with sound and also with Sonic Wilderness and Sound is Growing. So I founded this website called rec.org. So it's rec-on.org. And there I'm now with others developing ideas of being more explicitly working around issues. And it's a different talk. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's interesting because it kind of comes out of Sonic Wilderness, and it's a development that goes further in letting this grow and let this happen to be something that's not necessarily pleasant or, you know, posh or gallery like or exhibitionable or sellable on an online platform or even streamable. Maybe experimental radio plays these kind of things, but it's definitely sound material that it's not for entertainment or something. So I'm working on this on very many different formats there, and it's very interesting. And if you want, you can go and check it out. But I was largely inspired by this book called Potential History, Unlearning Imperialism by Ariella Aisha Assouli. And actually her and we collaborated last week on a piece for the strike MoMA in New York City about plunder and the museum as a colonial entity. You can also find this online. This piece is very powerful, I think. I started to be interested in thinking about where sound is really like confrontationally political. For example, here Las Tesis, this feminist collective from Chile who sparked this worldwide movement of women protesting with this chant against sexual harassment and unaccountability of you know, rapists and harassers and violence of police. And so I'm starting to look into different ways of how sound is used in protest or in political resistance. And for example, here, Chile, or in general South America, using drumming and pots and whistles to protest. And this on the left side is I don't know her name right now anymore. Damn, I forgot her name. It's a German artist, I think, building these amplification sculptures, which reminded me also of this image where, like, this is in Indonesia, protests, or even the Spanish anarcho-feminist movement in the beginning of last century, using sound as forms of protest. And from there, you know, I'm starting to think it's not only us using sound, it's also the police and the army using sound as weapons against, you know, populations and protesters and peaceful protesters. And so I'm thinking about this kind of like, and that's not ready. That's why the picture is also really shitty, because my thought process is not further yet. But thinking about that kind of sonic warfare, sonic conflict or opposition, and something about there I'm investigating currently on this site Recon.org. And yeah, what else? Yeah, it has to do with, there's one book I want to recommend you, I really like, and it has influenced me a lot. It's called The Dissonance of Democracy, Listening, Conflict, and Citizenship. And it's from the 90s. It's quite old already, but the book is really powerful in making a point about listening as in politics, and also how dissonance is something subversive and is also part of the political process. For example, in a group having different opinions and don't agree or don't be in harmony and all that stuff. So I can really recommend to look into this. I found a lot of very interesting reflections about sound in there. Also inspired by Silvia Federici, in all ways, her Marxist feminist ways, to Caliban and the Witch, to her recent talk about utopia, where she says that utopia is a constant critique, and maybe this is now going out of sound, but in a way it's still for me something I'm looking at, like, and coming back to the score. So if the score is a potential of what can happen, a future possibility, think about sound growing, initiating connections, growing into decentralized networks, intersectional transcorporal feminist sonic wilderness, collaborative practice, exploring sonic realities and feminist technologies. So this is a blurb which is now basically growing into this idea of sonic wilderness being a sound practice, and also kind of a hope for a collective intelligence or sound intelligence, sonic intelligence, I don't know. So yeah, so thinking about questions like how to use sound to empower, change, and improve life, how sound is explored in recognizing issues, sonification, for example, or field recordings. There's lots of great examples of other artists doing that. I haven't now mentioned even, but I'm sure Jan has been mentioning some of them. Jana Winderen, for example. Access to air waves and scale and time and space. So always remembering that sound is a time-based medium, right? It's always on a timeline. So, and it's always waves. Sound are always waves bouncing off particles. So, you know, depending on the scale, and also thinking about airwaves in terms of radio and access, it's very important. And the interpretation of data and also then, you know, sound as a form of also words, language, voice, the human voice, storytelling, not only human voice, the animal voice, the other beings, you know, and telling stories which we understand and maybe which have a potential of telling a different story to the one, you know, has been told, or there is some way to open stuff and rethink and perhaps change, transformation. And this brings me to the Brno studio, and this is a drawing Kata made out of our class on sonic wilderness on the faculty, and we've been practicing sonic wilderness in the same format as we are now, but not just me talking, us talking together and us playing together, but also going outside, unfortunately due to pandemic, by ourselves and making sonic interventions in places. And we have developed this score in Czech, which you can find here. I should put this in the chat. Maybe Jan, you have this link as well. So if you want to make a sonic wilderness intervention, you could use our score, which we've been making. Here it is. And it's even in Czech. We translated it into Czech. I don't know if you all are Czech or not, but we're thinking to developing it further and also make a postcard from it and distribute it in Brno. So maybe also translate it into really non-artist language, so it could be done by anyone. And we're collecting practices this way and building a website, and also made a lot of pieces already. And I wanted to play you one piece, which I now can't because it doesn't work. The scream piece. Well, you have to wait a little bit until our website is ready. We implemented in the score one scream. So the score is having all these like ideas and then implement a scream somewhere. And we realized that sometimes, especially if you're in public space, in a city, in an urban space, a scream doesn't go down well necessarily in some places. So of course, if you're in the wilderness or in the forest, or, you know, somewhere where nobody is much around, you can scream as much as you want. But obviously in a place with lots of people, that could signal something very different. And so we developed this idea of a quiet scream, a very quiet scream, like, and we all recorded quiet screams and made the ambient scream piece. So I hope you look forward to hearing this hit of ours. And I think I'm at the end of my presentations, and I want to have all your questions. So one thing I wanted to bring in, and I always say this lately because it comes up, that, you know, of course, the practice has an ecological tone or layer to it. So thinking about also being, if you are closer to your surroundings, and if you invest in your garden, in your park, in your forest, in your river, in your lake, if you go out and you are there, and I don't know if you guys do that. I think there's a lot of people who don't do that much anymore, but maybe now with the pandemic, it starts again happening because we're all crazy about the situation. But, you know, there is this kind of like idea of, you know, and also the climate crisis, obviously the Fridays for Future strikes and the really urgent conditions about the planet and the rising temperatures and the potential refugee crisis, or the existing refugee crisis, but the even more so potential for the future, and all these things that are upon us basically through to changing climate, which will bring droughts and fires and storms and hurricanes and loss of habitat and extinction, sixth extinction. I mean, it's a horrible note to end like that, but I didn't mean to say. I just wanted to say that we should, you know, in that way, it quite often comes across as the human being something, you know, to be fed up with. And I have this a lot, that I'm fed up with this patriarchal destruction, militarized world. Like, I mean, you know, when we talk about who's the biggest polluter, it's the military on this planet, and who and why, and all these things. So in these contexts, when we get there, and there's accelerationism, and there's this these political ideas of you know, that we are going towards a catastrophe and we don't deserve better. And there I want to always mention to not give in to this sentiment. I wanna say that I think it is our chance also to change a lot of things and to value life, including our own lives and our own, you know, beauty and intelligence and capabilities of being able to move and hear things and be friends and love and you know, dance and all these things, make meals, cook, care. So I'm often, you know, when you have these moments of despair, when you think that it's overwhelmingly difficult to imagine that goes somewhere positive, I want to say that it is possible, and it is really, really up to us. And also means that, especially as artists and maybe students, which is privileged position to be in, right? I mean, if you compare the rest of the world, if we are in this privileged position, even we don't sometimes feel like that, we have a chance and a responsibility to make this happen, to that the imagination exists, you know, to build this world, to build this fantasy, or I don't know, live a different kind of example or life, expand for more freedom for all, you know. So I think this is the responsibility of the artist, and not to make a nice NFT or picture or gallery show, or, you know, this is all part of it at times, and I'm releasing records and so on, but I'm just saying the true meaning of us is to be inspirational, you know. And so I'm sure you know all this, but I just wanted to say this in the end, because I you know, read a lot of people's paths, and sometimes I'm thinking I want to be encouraging to look the other way, you know. So the sonic perspective, yeah, it's in the beginning for me as well. So I'm in the process of this, and I hope this was interesting to you, and please let's talk a little bit. And thank you for listening. And these are my handles, social media, and I release music under AGF if you want to listen to my music. Thank you.
Thank you a lot for your presentation. Now I would like to start the question and answers session. And if it's possible, I would like to start with the first question. It's I would like to point to the sound that's growing and to the like mycelium scores, like what the one from us that are like now listening and watching, that are like not connected with artistic practice or like sound production at all. Like what you can take from this practice, sound that's growing, mycelium scores into your body, like how you can like take like the full potential and transform it somehow into your like your everyday living, or like into your bones and muscles.
Wow, that's a wonderful question, Jan. Thank you. Bones and muscles. Well, I do think I don't know how many sound artists are here and how deep I have to go for this. Maybe not everyone is a sound artist, Jan?
Definitely not.
So just roughly, so sound are waves, right? Like the higher the sound, the smaller is the wave, and the deeper the sound, the wider is the wave. And as you know, in space, we don't hear sound because space is matterless, right? So on Earth, we only can hear sound physically because, of course, of our ears and our head and our brain, but also because the sound is bouncing off particles. So if there wouldn't be any matter around us, and we wouldn't hear anything. I find this incredible, by the way. And the sound is going into our ears if we are capable of hearing, because there are also people who are not capable of hearing, but they can also experience sound because sound has also, you know, vibration. And the more, of course, people who are not having hearing, they're even more sensitive to vibration. And there is a lot of like many artists who have worked with vibration as sound, right? You just attended a lecture, no? With Rabi. I think he is a very vibration artist, and also Kathy Matthews, for example. She built sonic furniture, and there's a lot of artists who work with vibration in space. And so sound can literally, you know, move your cells. And we know also higher frequency sound, like ultrasound, can go through your body. For example, when you are pregnant, you know, you can see the baby inside your belly, or you can see your bones, or then there is X-ray. So it goes up the frequency, the higher you go, is used in physics, and even there are possibilities to see our insides and make them visible through these waves. So thinking about what sound means to the human, and how we I don't know how long humans are around, 250,000 years about, right? Maybe, and not just humans, and also other sapiens like Neanderthalers and stuff. So for like, let's say 500,000 years, we have developed this intelligence to deal with sound on this planet. And of course, we don't know what happened many years back, but we know that, for example, sound recording only exists for 120, 30, 50 years, right? Before that, there is not one sound recording. We don't know how the world sounded, and still the swans, the birds, the animals, the wind, the ocean, all these things were there, and they probably sounded like they are sounding now. So there is a different form of time, a different form of wave and wavelength. And I'm going really far here into like philosophically, but just saying the potential of sound and our brains, which are a complete mystery to us. We have no clue what's going on there, right? There is a lot of research poured into, but we don't know too many things. And my gut feeling is that the sound brain is a huge part, where we can remember melodies, where we can remember, you know, store sound memory, and a lot of things. For example, I always think about voices. Like, how crazy is it that you can distinguish every human being by their voice if you know them? So if you know a person even a little bit, you understand who that person is just by hearing them speak. I find this incredible. So this kind of intelligence is in us. And so sound is growing if we're using our bodies, and we're using the space, and we're using tools and instrumentalities, and maybe technology, and maybe we use, you know, wood, or we are amplifying the bird or the wind or the street noise or the construction space. It affects us, right? The vibration comes back to our bodies and comes into our bone structure and into our brains. And I cannot say for sure how it affects, but that's my answer. I haven't been investigating much further, but I think our sonic intelligence is so much bigger than we've been socialized to think. I mean, if you talk to indigenous people who still live with the land, you know, who understand land, who understand the spaces they live in, and we do that too, we just don't know. We know when the door bangs, our partner left the house. We don't need to think about it. We know the person didn't leave the house because the door didn't bang or something like this. Or, you know, we have so much constant open ears input, and we have an incredible intelligence about sound. So using this potential and trying to play with that and experiment with that, and I think there's a lot of possibility, and I'm hoping that this leads to something, you know, I don't know, different kind of consciousness or beings, or I don't know. We've been thinking about being cyborgs, you know, being more and more dependent on the internet, being more and more connected to our phones, communication, social media, not everyone, but many people. And then being on one hand, this person, but also having all these other skills. So I'm looking into a combination of these, you know, the development of our skill sets, and also maybe use it as healing, and it's just wonderful to go out there and do these things together, you know, for mental health, for like health of the body, for example, oxygen simply, or stuff like that. Is that a little bit answering your question?
I think yes, thank you.
But you can also respond. What do you think? How is it entering our body?
I was like kind of like more pointing to the thing what is currently going on in the studio, that you are now a guest professor, because I've like, and there's also like another question for you, like while I'm also like attending the studio, is that the way how like, let's say the pedagogical system that is like built within the studio, it's like leaving, let's say, the traditional like vertical hierarchies, and we are building like somehow that is like more like trans-pedagogical system where, you know, like our like resonating bodies can like learn from each other. So yes, my question is like, if like this is like one of the perspectives of like sonic wildness.
Well, it makes me happy you say that. You know, it's the first time I'm teaching, so it's really hard for me. I don't have the experience you have of a university and of a teaching system, so I can actually not compare it. For me, this is what I'm bringing, and this is that is the like non-hierarchical situation I want to be in and work in and collaborate in. So that's what I think is happening, and I'm really happy to hear that you think like that, actually, and that this is desired.
Yeah, like, please, if there is any other question, feel free to ask directly or write to the chat.
Yes, please bring it on. It's your chance.
I have question.
Hi.
Hi. I want to say that I totally understand your motivation to go out from some club or situation where it's difficult sometimes to set the proper listening situation, and to go outside to create your own setup or constellation with people. But I want to make it clear what's your relationship to the environment, because when I was listening the first piece, it sounds in the beginning like that there is a framework of acoustic ecology in the approach, that you respond to the soundscape you are in, and there was some certain moment when the sound you were producing turned into the music that grows its own world and like disconnect from environment, and you start to playing music and forget a little bit what's going around. I don't know if I understand. So I just want to know if like for you is it's important to be that environment part of your let's say music, or is it just kind of social situation that inspires you, and the music you produce is the main aim?
No. The main aim is really, the main aim is the intervention. And I think all these things play an equal, position. First of all, there's different people with different things and different skills. And some people are very much into, acoustic ecology and only into that. And then there's some people who are maybe rather only field recorders, or people who work only with the field as a sampling source. Or so I actually like to have different kind of people in the group, ideally, also sonification specialists or voice artists or dancers or like body people, like I like to have really variety, ideally, and not favor any of the other. But of course, in the beginning, we start from listening, the listening is actually the most important priority to understand what we're hearing and where we're at, and then react to it. And it's true that sometimes it turns into music, and then there is some sort of departure, or some sort of like, for example, in that first piece at the fence, the reindeer fence is a very interesting story. So this fence is built for reindeers to not go through, because reindeers are nomadic creatures. They go in summer to the north, and because humans make borders, they cannot do this anymore. But the indigenous people who live there, they want to get their reindeers to the north, but they can't, because there's a new country and the reindeers are not allowed to go there anymore. So it's just quite recent that they had to build these fences. And so there's also this political implication of the border regime imposed on the earth and the animal and the free land. And so we were like playing with that. And then this helicopter, the Chinese tourists coming in, and then we're actually in this session, also reindeers came. They are not in a video, we didn't film them, but reindeers came and they were curious what we were doing. They were like, oh, what's the music about? And they came and listened for a while, and then they left. So I think I personally find it interesting to also in this context. Or develop some sort of music out of it if it happens, but not determine it beforehand. You just, if it happens, if the people who are there create some sort of music, it's beautiful, I think. So this is a little bit how I see it, and I really don't want to restrict it or not let it happen or something. Sometimes we have been singing, or people have been citing poetry or words, or been reading along, or, all sorts of, anything can happen basically, depending on who's in the space, and who's there. So I don't see a hierarchy in these things. They all play an equal role to me. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there, so it's difficult to judge. But
yeah, if I would have you there, I would ask you to bring zonification gear and do real-time zonification, obviously, because I saw your zonification talk, and I know that you're a specialist. So, yeah.
Thank you. I would like to, of course. And what I saw, that that was the mixture of approaches. So that came to my mind. If there is some kind of openness to anything, or is there some
100% openness?
Yeah.
That's it, exactly. I would almost say, to me, the freedom part is the most important. You know, we are not staying with some rules there. Everybody brings, and then the magic happens when we are together and we're playing and we're listening and we're reacting to the environment and to what we hear and to what we hear from each other. There has been really magical moments in the past, and sometimes it's not possible to really record that, you know, but sometimes it has happened. That's also something, because when I started doing this kind of thing, I thought, oh, I'm going to go into the forest and I'm going to play, and then I can play this, you know, like stream myself, what's now normal, but 10 years ago it wasn't. And so I was thinking, that's so interesting. And then I realized it's not interesting at all. Like one artist alone in the forest doing their thing. I mean, what's cool about that? You know, like, so I was like, that's a narcissistic idea. So I was like, no, the idea must be really it must be a social practice. It must be a thing we do with people or with others. And then it started to be interesting, I think. And sometimes I went with kids, you know, they have no clue about acoustic ecology. But they know what it is in their own way, you know, they play that way. But with kids, I've had amazing sonic wilderness interventions, you know, fun also.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think I will maybe continue like while the goal of the like sonic wilderness practice is like collaborative acts, but they are like based on like specific space, let's say. So the physical present is like somehow important, and according to the current situation, when the physical present is like putting us into the risk, like where you see the possibilities of like sonic wilderness as a practice in the like remote way, where we can be collective only through the screens.
Yeah, I see a question in the chat, by the way, by Lucy. Maybe we can take it next. Yeah, the remote experience has been really interesting, and I'm still in it, so I don't really know yet. There has been some moments where we've been, for example, humming together, and I thought it was really touching to me, you know, that we're all in this like isolated places in quarantine, not allowed to go out, and we're still humming together. I mean, to me, that has a very poetic potential, and I thought that was beautiful. Or collecting our silent screams, pre-record them, send them to each other, and make mixes from them. Or we've made different graphic scores during the sessions, and we presented them to each other and then interpreted them on screen. And there, I think, is actually quite some potential. There's also artists who do that already. For example, Annie Abrahams is a senior artist who's doing screen performances and remote screen performance forever. She was famous for doing that until the pandemic basically stole her whole aesthetics, and now it's like so mainstream. But she is doing this for years, experimenting with this like screen performing, and this is also maybe something, you know, which we could try still in our semester, that we do some more performative stuff with screens as well and sound. This could be interesting. It's new to me too, so I kind of I prefer going out, and because we have mobile phones with internet connections, there could be something really potential there, you know, be together in a chat outside. But so far that was also really difficult because you have this like high COVID situation. But this could be something because you can still go out by yourself. So being connected and following we had this idea of going to different locations, which we had pre-scouted. They are also part of this collective Sonic Wilderness score we translated into Czech, which you could find. They were also part of the Brno Art Week, the score and our idea. Maybe you can even explain this, Jan, what happened there. I don't even know so much about this, if actually anybody did participate or tried. But I think there is some playroom, you know, to experiment what we could do together. And I think we just touched a little bit surface on that. So I'm still looking forward the next few sessions to explore a little bit more.
This is kind of working well with our next question from Lucia. I will just read it from the chat. How to make sonic or aural sensitive community sustainable and not only temporary, ephemeral, project oriented? And the other question, how to fight capitalism with listening?
That would be so awesome if we literally could fight capitalism through listening. Yeah, well, maybe the second question first. I think, you know, everything has its limits. And I think listening is kind of contrary to fighting. Listening is something you have to be open, and that's the part. There's also in this book, Dissonance, it's really well explained how you actually have to be open and willing to change, because as long as you don't want to hear it, you will not hear it. And that happens in your smallest family situation, partnership, you know, you as well as in a big political, you know, sphere and so on. So for example, there's this idea that a person like Trump is installed because he is not listening, because his whole persona is a non-listening person. You know, he doesn't want to change his mind. He has no interest to listen to anyone. So he's just literally there to bulk off everybody, to let, you know, the greedy 1% get more land or minerals or what they all need. So that's why he was very useful to the GOP in America, for example. I don't know how this is in your home country or in the country where you're now based, most of you. So, for example, here in Finland, we have a feminist government currently with lots of women who are from all spectrum of the political spectrum, basically left and right. And there is some listening happening. You know, I can see how the policies, how the country has reacted to actually save lives. For example, very concretely in the pandemic, you know, Finland has lost 800 lives in the entire pandemic. This is not much. It's quite good. And the country has reacted very responsibly to protect its citizens from, you know, losses through the pandemic and so on. It's paying them, it's giving them safety and so on. The whole policy of the country is like that. So in a way, indirectly, I think listening can fight capitalism, but maybe not fight, but, you know, the fighting part is also important. We are not gonna get rid of it without fighting. That's for absolutely sure, you know. So the fight must happen, and the fight is very important to organize, but we don't want to have a blood fight. Obviously, we cannot win against highly militarized enemies or state power or, you know, geopolitical arrangements, which are now 100 years old or something soon. So the fight has to happen differently, and we have to be intelligent to fight it, and we have to develop like how you can see in the protests and in the in how the combination of protests, legislation, social media, documentation, artists, journalists, you know, hackers, how the whole combination of all these people can maybe, this way we have to fight, only so we can fight. And so we maybe have a chance, I think. So that's the listening part. And the first part, make it sustainable. Well, my gut feeling is education would be great. You know, I've always been saying, I was 30 when I heard about John Cage the first time. And I always wished I would have learned about him when I was a child and my life would have been different. So I think, for example, I'm pushing here in Finland that sound and audio education and also listening education is implemented in the curriculum. So this is something in small countries can actually be done. You know, we can just make it happen. We just have to do some work for a few years. Basically teach listening and teach sound skills and sensitivity for that. And that's something that can absolutely be done, I think. Of course, conservative governments, again, who have no interest in participation of their people won't allow, but I don't know, maybe there's some tricks that can be done. Make it sustainable is also happening, of course, to artistic practice and our practice. I mean, we have all seen how in a pandemic, sound and listening and music has become so important. And so many people have said to me, music has kept them sane, or listening to podcasts has kept them sane, or, you know, there is a lot of potential. And by us becoming more aware of it and also being obviously having no other choice, because right now we're listening like this, there will be an increased, sound is growing. I mean, when I started sound practice, there was nobody much. There weren't many people doing things like that. Of course, it's maybe since the 50s, 60s, people do things, but it's becoming mainstream. So I think it is, in a way, I don't know if that's your question. Maybe you could say more what you mean, but I think it is sustainable by just, you know, teaching next generation. You are all young people. I have all my hope and faith in you guys. I think you are so smart and skillful, and you already have so much more capacities than, example, on the island where I live, I had a project with sound apps. So I was experimenting with tablets and sound apps, and I was teaching kids, and we had an iPad orchestra, and my main interest was digital literacy. So I wanted kids to understand that phones and computers are not only there to play games or talk to your mom or your friend or, you know, shoot people or pigs, or, you know, like, just think about digital devices more as a creative tool. So I made this in this media lab. We had this iPad orchestra, and we only made music with iPads. Back then, it's a while ago. I don't know if I would still do that, but back then I thought it's an interesting project. And so I realized that children, and we started really young, and 6-year-olds in preschool, they would come once a week and we would play music together on pads. And I had like 100 sound apps, and it was so much fun. It was pure sonic wilderness. It was crazy. The kids would play this stuff and it was sounding wild, really wild. And so, you know, and over the time, everybody who came there, moms with their kids, there was also very young kids. Sometimes there was a 2-year-old grabbing the iPad and playing this, you know, playing this app, and it sounded wild and it was fun, and we would laugh and we would have fun. And so I decided we should also go to the old people's home on the island. So I applied for a little grant, and I got some locals to go once a week to the elderly, what's it called? Elderly home, where people like past 80, 90, 100 live. And we got the ones who wanted in a room. I participated once, but I don't speak so well Finnish, so I couldn't do it. But I was there once, and I was shook how, I mean, the technology has already such a different effect, you know, on that generation. The simplest function of play, nothing worked. It was just that they couldn't even imagine to do this. It was really interesting. And so what I mean with this is, it was to me, you know, there were very intelligent people, like doctors and, you know, people who've lived full lives and were just now, they just couldn't imagine to make music like this. There was nothing they could think of them doing. So this kind of shows me, you know, that as a species, even in this short time of maybe 100 years, we are evolving crazy, like crazy. And I don't know, I think this is something, I don't know if that's what you meant, or if you're talking about literal art funding. Lucia, you have to let me know. But there's this way of, like, you know, doing stuff anyway, and then there's things how to survive. Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you one more time.
Thank you for having me.
Looks like there are no other questions. If I can kindly ask you, if you have like any more questions, please ask now.
I wonder if we should make a mycelium score together.
Yes, please, let's do it.
That would be a nice ending. Wait, I share my screen again so you can look at it. So I'm suggesting for the final thing for tonight, we're gonna make a hum together. And I'm actually collecting the word hum in languages on Twitter. It's going really well. I have now also Hindi and Japanese and Arabic. And if you speak any specific cool language, please go to Twitter and help. We're collecting as much words in different languages for humming. Means a human is humming, vibrating, basically with their voice and closed mouth. And it's funny that some languages have words for it and some not. The plan is we switch all our microphones on. You don't have to switch on your video, just the microphone. And you hum. What's the word in Czech?
Oof, it's like really a big drama always when it comes to translating humming. I'm like mostly using the word bručanie in the sense like vydávať hlboký zvuk z bránice for the Czech and Slovak one. But yeah, like I think there is like no one word translation of humming or hum.
So we start doing this. I start, and then you join me. And you're not trying to go along with my sound or stay in tune, but you just go anywhere you want to grow to. Basically, you look for sugar. That's the best way how I can see it. You just look with your voice where to go, and you are going, and you don't stay in one tone. You're constantly moving, but slow, very slow. And, you know, you grow, and then, of course, you have to breathe. Don't forget breathing. And take a little breath and then keep on growing and growing. And maybe just a minute together, you know, humming. And because this is the internet, there will be some voices will cut through and some won't. And compression will make it sound, you know, different. But it's still interesting, I think, to listen to it. And you can also, when you breathe, when you take air, you can hear and can listen for a second how it sounds, and then you continue. Okay? So please, everyone, switch on your microphone. If you can, actually, if you're somewhere in a space, you can do that. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Thank you so much, everyone. Lovely.
Hey, AG, thank you too. It was like really nice to be with you. Thank all the participants to be with us today also. And just like short promo for the next week, like the next Videogram session will be with like Polish label Oramix. So we are all very welcome. Okay, and thank you one more time and wish you a nice evening.